Welcome. So this video is going to be about sales. So if you're a startup or a scale up or you have sales teams, and this is going to be about how the sales processes should work, sales as a profession, how to get some sales. And by the end of this, you'll take away some actionable tips that you can go and take away that will make you revenue and will improve your sales targets. So as you can see on the board, I've written down here cash flow and leads. So cash flow is like the pulse to any business. If you don't have cash, the business is dead. So you're either alive or you're dead. So cash flow you want to have because that gives you a pulse. You want to think of leads as the oxygen. When you have a pulse, you need to breathe. Leads allow you to breathe. If you have an abundance amount of leads, then you can breathe as a business. So I wanted to share something. There's lots of videos out there on sales techniques, but for our audience, so they can get something in one place. My name's Whitby. I've been in sales for 25 years, from old school fact, feature, benefit 25 years ago to the more kind of modern, based around finding pains that people have and then offering a solution to those pains. So more consultative selling, a bit like a doctor or a personal trainer. So cash flow and leads, really important. So a lot of this video is going to be around how do we get more leads? Very important. So first of all, sales as a profession. Sales is often one of those things that people fall into. They accidentally fall into it. Maybe they've gone to university, they've done a degree, doesn't really work out in their chosen profession. So a lot of people just fall into sales. I think it's fantastic if somebody chooses sales because they're passionate about it and they're excited about it. That's brilliant. But sales is hard. And it's tough. For many of the years that I've been in sales, most companies that I've seen, which I've been in within 100 companies, big and small, some of the FTSE 100, some one-man bands and startups. And one thing I would say is that sales is often treated as, and salespeople treated as, something that they maybe didn't choose to do. And there are a few companies that I've seen embrace sales as a profession. And so, if sales was seen as a profession, then you would have learning in the same way you do, for an accounting practice or in construction, you have to continuous professional development. So you always have to keep learning, and then you have to show people that you have learned in those professions. If you're an architect, there are lots of different professions where we have what's called CPD, continuous professional development. So in sales, I think you should have continuous professional development, and you should always be learning. So you want to think of this like, learning with AI, for example, learning with automation. Marketing's changing so quickly. There is, it's probably the easiest time to start a business because you have free marketing on social media, but it's the hardest time also because you have so many different options. Like, where do you start and where do you spend your money, for example? So from a marketing perspective, it's tough. What you want to do is always be learning, and there's a few different routes that you can do that. So first of all, YouTube is fantastic. So I'm a big lover of podcasts. I can spend my evenings watching podcasts. It's not learning to me. It's not work to me. It's something that I enjoy. I enjoy switching on my brain and trying to learn something I didn't know before. YouTube's great. There'll be loads of podcasts. It's free learning. These days, I don't see why most people go to university. I think that's a waste of money. Yeah, of course, if you need to be a lawyer, if you've got to be a doctor, maybe you have to go to university. But for a lot of professions these days, especially with AI and what's coming, then we have all the tools to learn from the University of Life. And YouTube is fantastic for that. If you spent 2 hours a day on YouTube, then you'd be spending 700 hours a year on learning. And you can find all of the subjects on sales, on marketing, on psychology, on mental health, on business, entrepreneurship. It's fantastic. There is something for everybody on YouTube. So if you are starting a business and you're thinking, well, I don't know everything, because nobody knows everything. People who come into business, they're typically good at something. So maybe they're good at what they're going to try to sell, and then they have to learn sales and marketing. Maybe they're good at sales and marketing, but they're going to have to learn IT and finance. Maybe they're good at IT and finance. So you get the picture. Nobody's perfect at everything. And if you are brilliant, you're going to fly. But the good news is that you can learn, and YouTube is a great space for that. So use that. Then what you want to be doing is, there's no point learning and spending 700 hours a year learning if you're not going to apply it. Now, here's the kicker. You've got to be prepared to fail. Learn fast by failing fast and a lot. So nobody ever, well, maybe they did, but starting out in business, most of it, a lot of it is learning. A lot of it is trying something. And if you speak to most business owners, they'll tell you that they spent money on something and it didn't really work for them. And it doesn't mean to say that it doesn't work for anyone. It's just that it didn't really work for them. And maybe they try sales and they're not very good at it, so they outsource it, marketing, maybe it's investing, maybe it's acquisitions, whatever it is. So you want to try all of these techniques that you learn whilst you're watching YouTube and fail. And when you fail, you learn a lesson and then you get back up again. If you've ever tried, or if you think of the best things in life, when you tried to learn to ride a bike, you didn't get on the bike and wheelie away. No, you probably fell off, and falling off hurts. It's painful. And that's how you learn. Most things in life, you learn through the taking part and the failing. On that part, if you are starting your business and you're in the planning stage for too long, planning's where dreams go to die. You've just got to start and just move quickly. I would also say in the days that we live in, there's an abundance of AI. So I pick up my phone and I'll have a conversation with Gemini or with ChatGPT. Other AI models are available, but you're in the business or in a world where you can pick up your phone and you can have a conversation with AI. Now, AI does hallucinate and it does have some issues, but most of the time you're going to be able to fact check and find out anything that you want to about any subject in the world. So use AI as a learning tool. Again, if you and AI did 700 hours a year, then you'd be far and away, learning a lot more than you would from a university degree. And you're in control of the questions that you ask. So learning with AI, work on yourself harder than you work on your business. I'll say that again, work on yourself harder than you work on your business. Your brain and your power is really important. And if you show me the successful people, then I will show you the correlation between the books that they read, the channels that they watch, the learning, the effort that they put in. It's the 1% club. So work on yourself as well as the business. When it comes down to the sales part, use AI to research prospects. So we live in a sales world where if I wanted to do personalization when I started out in sales, that was really difficult to do. You'd have to spend a lot of time to try to find out the information about that company. You couldn't do it. You'd probably have to spend 2 or 3 hours on each company. With AI and with the internet the way that we have it, it's a perfect time. If you can spend 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes researching a company, the way that you talk to that company can be very much more, how can I help you? I can see that you have this. I think that could be a problem here. And how can we talk about solutions? You can come from a how can I help you scenario, then this is what we do. This is how amazing we are. Nobody cares how amazing you are. People are selfish. What's in it for me? They only care what you can offer. So just taking that little bit of extra time and using AI and also, research tools that you have, LinkedIn, checking out people's Facebook, can help you to go a lot faster. You also want to be thinking about automation as well. So you want to be using automation and how you reach out to people. Now, I know this has a dirty word because people think, well, in sales, if you're using automation, then it's spammy. But look, cold emails has worked for many, many years, and it's still one of the most effective forms of marketing, in my opinion. But it doesn't mean everyone's going to love your email. That's the whole point of sales, Not everybody's going to love you. Everyone's definitely going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to tell you how to do something. But at the end of the day, some automation is helpful to move at pace, especially now we have AI. So there'll be all sorts of clever business development organizations that are using tools to automate how you reach out on LinkedIn, to automate how you reach out on email, to automate some sophisticated funnels, create the sales funnel that you have. So learn about automation, try and implement it within your business. Okay, so what you want to have then is some form of a sales process to follow. This is the bit that most businesses forget. They don't have any kind of a process to follow. And most salespeople as well, the most successful businesses and the most successful salespeople follow a process. So it starts with the top of the funnel, of course. Let's get leads in. Let's raise awareness. Let's get nurturing opportunities. But once they're into the top of the funnel, what's the process? So you have a lead now. So, and as we said, leads are oxygen. So that's brilliant. So we can breathe and we can try and make a sale. But it's still about how you work that prospect and how you try to help that prospect. Not what you can take from them, but how you can try and help them. So first of all, it starts with a pain point. And so you want to be trying to find out genuinely how you can solve a problem. So if you as a business might have 5 or 6 different solutions, it could be, take this in a retail environment. Someone walks into a shop, that shop could have 1,000 products. Doesn't mean you're going to sell 1,000 products to the person that walks through the door. The first question is going to be, how can I help you? And then the consumer will typically say, well, actually, I was thinking of this. I want some hair dye. Oh, okay. What sort of type of hair dye? Were you looking for something that, creates curls, something that solves dandruff? Like what were you looking for? Oh, I was looking for something that gives me some volume. Oh, right. Okay. Well, let's have a look over here. So we do have some products. Now you're trying to solve a solution. You're trying to help, and you might be asking more consultative questions. How that works in a B2B world is sometimes we forget the kind of how can I help you. So when I get a lead, it doesn't matter if the lead comes from LinkedIn, if it comes from Twitter outreach, if it comes from YouTube, if it comes from TikTok, if it comes from our lead magnets. Wherever the lead comes from, somebody responded. And there's a reason that they respond, because people are resistant to respond. It's not like sales and marketing is easy. So if somebody has responded, then my first question is, what prompted you to respond? That's my how can I help in the retail environment. What prompted you to respond? Why did you want the ebook? Why was it important to ask for a meeting? From your perspective, what prompted you to respond? Your customer then is going to give you the reason that they wanted to have the conversation, because they know that they're going to have a conversation with someone that's going to try to sell to them at any time in marketing and sales. So if somebody is reaching out and engaging in that process, they are open to being sold to. But your job as a salesperson and as a business is to try to understand, what does that prospect want and how can I help them? So whatever that prospect says next is probably going to dictate some more questions from me. Questions are the engine room of any of your sales process. So the better questions you have, who, what, where, when, why. When I was taught 25 years ago, the six soldiers, you should always put your 6 soldiers to work so that you can work out if you have something that you can offer. So put your 6 soldiers to work. So why is that important to you might be one. So this kind of brings in the pendulum effect. So when I'll give you an example. So somebody asks to book a strategy call with us about our AI SEO or GEO offering that we offer. And I'll say to somebody, what prompted you to do that? And they say, well, because we need a few more leads and we realized that, SEO is kind of dying a little bit. So, and then I say, okay, well, that's fine. But, I was looking at your business and it seems like you get 2,000 people coming to your website each month. It seems like you're doing quite well. And so I'm going to kind of almost push them away with the pendulum, because I want to understand, why is it important to them? But I don't want to ask the direct questions. So they'll typically tell me, no, it's really important because actually, well, a couple of things changed in our industry. And so that means that it's become a lot harder. So we have to look at ways that we can find more leads, being the oxygen for their business. So now I have a kind of more real reason. It's not the surface level reason. Nobody just wants more leads. There's something that drives it. Our job as salespeople is to find out what drives it for the person. Why do they want that? Okay, now we need to be thinking, okay, well, do I know what I can offer yet? Maybe there are some more questions to find out exactly how you can help and what is the right product to offer. If you have a lot of products, as we said before, you need to find out what's the right one. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a conversation where you wonder and you're scratching your head, where did it go wrong? But really, it's where you took the conversation. If you get to that point, you've took the conversation in the right direction, now you get to offer a solution. That should be fairly easy by that point, because they know that they have a problem. And as long as your solution is a fit, the only next question really is, price and value. And I have a little trick for the price and value as well, because a lot of times as salespeople, if you're scaling up a business, you'll have had this many times. If you're starting out in business or sales and you've never done any before, there's a couple of ways to try to understand that. One is to directly ask, what is it? Obviously you had the solution and you had the problem. So what is and if it comes down to price, you want to ask the prospect this question. If this was free, would you take it? If you could solve that problem and this product was free, would you take it? The reaction to that typically is, yeah, of course, obviously I would take it. I mean, that's a stupid question, isn't it? Okay. And the next question might be, let's say your product is £500. If this product was £1,000, would you take it? Well, no, I wouldn't. I can't afford that. Okay. So, what's more comfortable for you, Mr. Prospect, along that line? Where do you sit? Where is it comfortable? Because if it's free, you'd take it. If it's £1,000, you wouldn't. Where do you sit? And what you're going to get then is, because they've already admitted that they want the product, it's just down to price at that point and value. And you can make a decision. In business, a lot of people will say, don't ever discount. But if you're starting out, something can be better than nothing. And that's, don't lead with a discount of 50%. But, at the end, if somebody's going to say, well, look, I'd be happy with 350, at least you have a choice. The ball's back in your court. And it might be that prospect then will come back later because they've already decided to themselves that they would buy your product. All the way through this, what you want to be thinking about is always making your prospect feel comfortable. So that might involve asking them for permission quite a lot. So at the start, for example, you can say to them, what prompted you to come along? And then they start talking. At some point, you might want to say, do you mind if I ask some questions? I just want to understand how I can help you. No, that's fine. Now the Spanish Inquisition doesn't feel so Spanish Inquisition. So you've got permission to ask questions now to take control of the conversation. And so those are what we would call upfront contracts. And you want to have those all throughout. So for example, if you're doing outbound sales and you book a meeting with somebody, you might want to end that meeting with an upfront contract for the next meeting. So for example, just to summarize, we said, look, actually, this is probably something to discuss not now, but we'll book a meeting for next Tuesday. At that meeting, there'll be one of two outcomes. Either it'll be not for you or for me, and neither of us will be offended and we'll just leave parts friends, or it's not a no, in which case we'll grab some time or set some next steps. Is that fair? Once that's agreed, the next meeting becomes much easier. All the stress has gone. So I want to leave you with a little tip, which is that if you're struggling in sales, try to take the pressure off yourself and try to work on your mind so that you feel like that it's going to happen for you. That'll make you feel confident. It'll come across in your voice. It won't sound so desperate. And then the other thing is that unless you are flying and you've got enough cash flow in the business and leads that you feel like, the pulse is beating and your oxygen is flowing, you feel really great about where you're going in business. If you're not there and you feel like you're up against it, you need more, then really the first 3 or 4 hours of your day, of every day, should be sales. And it should be one of 3 things only. Content. So creating content that's going to allow you to have more visibility, because at the end of the day, if nobody knows your product, then you're not going to make any sales. So content is one way. I think that's a really great way in today's world. Ads is the second way. So you can concentrate on creating ads, landing pages, and a funnel for your ads outreach. Again, get more leads. Leads becomes oxygen, more appointments, more presentations, more sales. And then finally, outbound. So the third method is just cold outbound, cold emails, whatever you find works for you. Social selling, account-based marketing, cold calling, whatever it is. But if you don't have a load of leads, a load of sales, and a lot of cash flow, then you should be spending at least half of your time in the sales arena and bringing that in so that you can have the cash flow, which gives you comfort, and you can have the leads, which will breathe oxygen into your business. I hope that you find this video useful, and I just felt that it could be something that would be really useful for the channel alongside all of the other videos in collaboration that we have with external experts. And thank you for following. If you haven't subscribed already, then click the subscribe button and go check out some of our other videos. If we can help you in any way, that would be great. Also, what's coming is every week we're going to have videos on what's new in AI apps and AI automation, what's new in marketing, and what's new in AI SEO and GEO and ask engine optimization. So the future of search. So visibility within ChatGPT, Gemini, Google AI mode, etc. So should be really valuable for you to follow the channel, and you'll be weekly updated with everything that you need to know in one place. Thank you.